The foundational skills for solving multi-step equations includes knowing how to solve 1 and 2-step equations, but before that, we also need to remember how to perform the order of operations and how to follow that always when we're doing math, and how to simplify algebraic expressions. Without these skills, we don't have the skills to work through 1, 2, and multi-step equations. So what we're going to look at first is the order of operations. The order of operations we remember as PEMDAS. So we have P for parentheses, E for exponent, M and D for multiplication and division, and those we'll talk about in 1 second, come in a pair, and then A, S for addition and subtraction. So parentheses is any of my grouping symbols. So we have our standard looking parentheses like this, but sometimes they might use a bracket. You just have to remember that our grouping symbols, that's what we do first. And if there is an expression inside of the parentheses, you start PEMDAS over again. So we'll look at some examples and see how that is possible. Exponents are what I think is the trickiest part of PEMDAS, because exponents are easily mistaken for multiplication, and although it is a form of multiplication, it's a very specific form. So when we have exponents, we have the big number, which we call the base, and then we have this superscript, this tiny number up here, that is our exponent. And that number tells me how many times I'm going to multiply the base by itself. So my example can be 2 to the power of 3. That's just 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8. So you're remembering that the exponent, this is a very specific type of operation, and that's the second thing we are allowed to do in the order of operations. The third thing we're allowed to do is multiplication or division. For multiplication or division, you're always going to move from left to right. So if division comes first, going from left to right, then the division goes first. If multiplication comes first, then you'll do that first. You're not going to always do multiplication then division, which is what the order PEMDAS is suggesting. That's why I wrote it, in the same color, and they share numbers. So we know that this is our combined third step. My fourth step is going to be addition or subtraction. So once all the other operations have been performed and you only have addition and subtraction left, then you do addition and subtraction from left to right as well. So I'm going to write the same thing. Do from left to right. And this just reminds me that if subtraction comes first from left to right, then I'm going to do the subtraction first. Hopefully when we look at some examples, this will feel a little bit easier. So our examples are, well, let's just look at example 1 first. We have 2 and then parentheses 7 plus 8 minus 4 cubed, and our parentheses, plus 6 divided by 3. So I'm going to stay in the colors we wrote these numbers in, these definitions or like explanations in, to try and keep each operator separate from the others. So my first step is parentheses. Inside of parentheses, I have 7 plus 8 minus 4 cubed. I'm going to leave the other numbers and operators in the original color so that I can try to ignore them while I'm working inside of the parentheses. Remember, we start over the order of operations once I'm looking inside of my parentheses. So now looking inside of this, I don't have another set of parentheses, but I do have an exponent. So what I'm going to do is that exponent first. So I'm going to leave my parentheses in orange, and I'm going to fill in the other colors. And then I'm going to do my exponent. So I'm going to do 4 times 4 times 4, because that's how we figure out 4 cubed. So 4 times 4 times 4 gives me 64. And so now I don't have any more exponents left inside of those parentheses. So now looking at my parentheses, I can see all that's left is addition and subtraction. So I'm just going to move from left to right and do that addition and subtraction. So again, I'm just bringing down what I was already working with. And I'm going to first do 7 plus 8. 7 plus 8 is 15 minus 64. I know that 15 minus 64 is negative 49. And now I have simplified my parentheses as far as I can, and I can think about moving on to the next operation. Remember, there's an invisible multiplication sign attached to parentheses if there is nothing else between the parenthesis and the coefficient. So I know that this is multiplication, this is addition, and this is division. So I'm thinking, okay, what is the next operation I can do? The next operation that I can do is multiplication or division. From looking left to right, my multiplication comes first. So the first thing I'm going to do is 2 times negative 49. And 2 times negative 49 gives me negative 98. I'm going to bring down the rest of the operations and numbers, operators and numbers. Now I'm going to look for the next thing I can do. The next thing I can do is this division, because right now I just have addition and division left. So I'm going to bring down this negative 98. I'm going to bring down my addition sign, and I'm going to do 6 divided by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And now I just have one thing left to do, and that is add these two numbers together. So I know that negative 98 plus 2 is negative 96, because I'm making negative 98 2 less negative. I can always check myself with a calculator. If I type in exactly how the problem is laid out into my calculator can actually do the order of operations for me. And negative 96. So we got that one correct. The next example we're going to look at is 12 minus 8 divided by 4 plus, we've got our grouping symbol, our bracket. Then inside of the bracket, we have parenthesis 6 plus 2 and parenthesis minus 3. Outside of our bracket, we have a squared, an exponent, then times 3. So there's a lot happening here. That's why we are going to follow it step by step and just take it one order of operations at a time. So the first thing I'm going to notice is I have 2 grouping signs. So I'm going to look at the outside grouping symbol first. What is inside of this grouping symbol? I'm going to bring down the other operators and numbers real quick. What is left inside of here is a parenthesis and then some subtraction. So since we start the order of operations over, I'm going to do the parenthesis first. So I'm going to do 6 plus 2. 6 plus 2 gives me 8. And then we have minus 3. There's still more that can be done inside of this original bracket. I can do 8 minus 3 and I get 5. I'm going to bring down my other operations. Don't forget your little squared. Now I can move on from our parentheses or our brackets because nothing else can be done inside of the brackets. The next thing that can be done is my exponent. So when I'm looking at this, I see that there is an exponent on this 5. So what I'm going to do is solve for 5 squared. 5 times 5 is 25. So I have simplified this exponent to be 25. Then what I'm going to do is bring down the rest of the problem. And I know it can seem kind of tedious to keep writing everything down, but if you don't, it's really easy to make a careless mistake. So we just want to ensure we are giving ourselves the best possible outcome. So looking at this, I have already done all the parentheses and all of the exponents. So the next would be multiplication or division. I've got division here and I've got multiplication here. We're going to move from left to right. So we're going to actually, in this case, start with the division. I'm going to bring down my 12. 8 divided by 4 is 2. I'm going to bring down the 25 times 3. There's still more multiplication or division to be done. The 25 times 3. I need to bring down the other numbers and operators. And now we're left with just addition and subtraction. Again, for addition and subtraction, we're moving from left to right. First, I'm going to do 12 minus 2, and I get 10. Then I'm going to do 10 plus 75, and I get 85. Just like we did for the other problem, we can check this if we are given a calculator. 12 minus 8 divided by 4 plus parenthesis, parenthesis, 6 plus 2, parenthesis, minus 3, parenthesis, squared, times 3. And I get 85.